For just a second, think about the world. What comes to your mind? While there are some really good and encouraging things on this planet, the one thing with which we would all probably agree on is that this world is broken. Wars and conflicts are killing people every day. Disease afflicts millions on every continent. Poverty kills the young and the old. Thousands upon thousands are murdered every hour. Corrupt governments are brutally oppressing their people. Terrorism, pollution, racism, theft, domestic violence, lying, cheating. Overall, this is a pretty messed up world. That being said, everyone is trying to make it better. There's this universal longing with everyone that this mess would be fixed, and every culture and religion thinks they can fix it. We know it isn't supposed to be like this, and that alone points to the reality that this perfect environment either existed somewhere in the past or might actually happen in the future. The Bible explains it this way. From the very beginning, God had a beautiful purpose in His creation. All of the complexity and diversity of His creation, living and non-living, natural and spiritual, were put in place so that His chief creation, man and woman, might fully enjoy Him. God isn't distant and cold, but instead He chose to create humans in such a way that He might have meaningful and purposeful relationship with them. Every last aspect of the universe was put in place in such a way that this bond between God and humankind might be carried out to its utmost. He even went so far as to create a special garden as a place to carry out this initial relationship. And even going a step further, while the planet was designed to take care of us, we were given the privilege of taking care of it. It was good. So how did it go wrong? Humans chose not to live under the good rule and care of the Creator. The Bible calls it sin, rebellion, and idolatry. In arrogance, they had the audacity to believe that they could fulfill their desires in a greater way than the way in which God created them to find fulfillment. God told them how they would be fully satisfied, but they chose to go their own way. The moment this happened, the consequences of this self-centeredness had ramifications on everything, and we have been living with it ever since. It harmed our relationship with God, with each other, and with the rest of His creation. What was intended to be enjoyed with our Creator, we decided to use for our own pleasure apart from Him. Just as it has been from the beginning, we want our own way, and God promised that the consequences of this would be separation so great that it would culminate in death. And not only death, but also what the Bible calls eternal death, a separation from God and His grace for eternity, a separation that will involve His wrath. The crazy thing about the mess that we're in, however, is the way in which we think we can fix it. We pleasure seekers who murder, rape, torture, molest, lie, cheat, steal, gossip, and manipulate have it in our minds that although we created and continue to create this mess, we can somehow repair the damage. Think about how hard we try. We try to mend families and countries, rescue orphans and animals, restore the ozone layer in the planet, and rebuild nations and peoples. We know the world is wrong, but in the end, everything we have tried eventually returns to a mess because of us. Remember that I said God created this world to have a relationship with us? The good news is that God refuses to abandon us. This is one of the main truths of the Bible. It tells of God's relentless desire to be in a right relationship with us, and it all culminated in Him coming to us. The way in which He decided to clean up the mess was by becoming us. He came to earth as a humble servant named Jesus to teach us what humanity is supposed to be. He came with a message of hope, calling all people away from their self-centered pursuits and back to Him. But before you think He was just a kind of glorified Gandhi, you've got to hear about His ultimate act. You see, the problem with humanity is humanity, like I said. God's relentless pursuit of us required that He change the inherent problem in each of us. The mess exists around the world because people exist around the world. He could give all kinds of great examples, but the problem was still there. Our sin and our condition needed to be changed. This is why He came, to die on our behalf. Remember I said there are consequences to not living under the good rule and care of the Creator? Those consequences, sin and death, had to be resolved. The whole world needed to be restored, beginning with man, His chief creation. When Jesus died on the cross, He bore the weight of God's wrath for our rebellion and died our death. It was great that He gave us an example of humanity while on this earth, but He ultimately took on humanity so that He might absorb God's wrath on our behalf, which would have taken an eternity for us to bear. Because Jesus came to earth as a full human being, he was able to die. Because Jesus remained fully God, his sacrifice sufficiently paid the penalty we deserved. When Jesus burst from the grave in victory 3 days later, he demonstrated his authority over death and proved forever that he is the King and Creator of everything. He didn't desert us in the least. Through this act, he is calling us back into right relationship with our Creator, our fellow man, and the rest of the created world. Those who choose to join Jesus in his mission of restoration might still die, but they will be in a right relationship with their Creator through this amazing act. No longer will they face wrath, which they deserve, but they will receive the grace that God intended from the beginning. So how does this change our world? God's plan is that our world is changed one person at a time through those who choose to join Jesus on his mission. In order to change, we must be changed, and those who have been intrinsically transformed through Jesus' work are now called together into groups called churches. City by city and town by town, they join Jesus in this fight against evil of this world by calling other humans from every nation, language, and ethnicity to leave their self-absorbed, rebellious lifestyle that has brought chaos and mayhem and follow King Jesus. He is calling us to join him, redeeming the world one person at a time. Jesus' followers aren't just coming with a message, they are coming as people changed by a message. The authenticity of Jesus' message and mission is found in the lives of his followers. And as we continue to follow him, the Bible promises that he will make us more and more like him, which is what humanity was intended to be from the start. These pockets of followers of Jesus are sent together to become outposts of peace into the midst of anarchy, to bring authentic harmony into the midst of broken human relationships. Everything from dysfunctional families to impoverished communities to racially torn neighborhoods to corrupt businesses. Destruction and conflict that humans, independent of God, have produced is to be purposely impacted by those choosing to join Jesus in his mission. Everyone realizes the world has these problems, and to be fair, Jesus' followers haven't always lived up to the one they are following. They have sometimes made following Jesus a set of awkward rules, and they don't even follow him. The mistake that they make, and that people make in general, however, is to think that this can be done without Jesus. This, however, is not the end. Some will choose not to follow Jesus and trust him to transform them. The outcome for them will be total separation and bearing of God's wrath for eternity. That seems so hard, but sometimes justice is just that, hard. He is offering his mercy and grace through his mission. Just like Jesus was ripped from the grave, those who choose to follow him and trust in his ability to change us will be resurrected as well. One day, God will remove us from this broken world because it needs resurrection too. The mission will have an end. All of those things for which humans long, safety, peace, harmony, relief, liberation, satisfaction, pleasure, and so much more will finally be realized. And at the end, the best part isn't that we get a perfect world with perfect humanity. The best part, the greatest joy, will be we get God. Don't end up on the wrong side of history. What was intended from the beginning will be more than realized. King Jesus will see to it.